So today we're going over cars that auction sites pull before anyone has a chance to win them, and the underbelly of the car auction world. Welcome to Off Camber. So there I was searching online, using my Google fingers, and I found a car. It was a pretty clean car too, for a fair price. Did my homework on it, which means for me, I looked at it for 3 days straight whenever I got a chance, lowered it in Photoshop, put a nice set of wheels on it, and figured I was being responsible. Came back to bid on it, and it was completely gone. Given it was an eBay ad, whatever. Anyways, there was no reserve not met, no auction ended, just gone. Like the car achieved enlightenment and ascended to another plane of existence. I was confused, so I called a bunch of my friends, and like jerks that have jobs, they all forwarded me to voicemail. So I went to the place that I always go to when I have questions about cars, because everybody's got an opinion there, the Car Lounge on VW Vortex. Lots of different people there. Well, there's this guy there, goes by Disgruntled Zemniak, I think is how you pronounce it, who has been manually building a database of every withdrawn bat listing he can find by hand for the last year and a half, updated every week. Hundreds of replies, dozens of contributors. This damn thing has a table of contents. Partway into this thread, I pretty much figured out there was something there. So jumped on Google, smashed the keyboard a little bit, and after hours of searching, endless searching, I found some links to some court documents and some auction archives and stuff like that. And what I found was actually a federal crime, actually multiple crimes. And then I also found one guy that paid $4,300 to successfully scam himself out of some money. I think you call that an idiot. But after all that searching, what I found actually wasn't a glitch. It's an ecosystem. It's an ecosystem of ghost bidders, dealer shills, and prices that are literally fake. And so today, I felt like a detective. We're going to do some forensic accounting, off-camber style, which means that I'm going to do it on my fingers, in case you were wondering. Okay, time for the whiteboard. Don't worry, I suck at drawing. Okay, so here's how a normal auction works. The buyer wants a car. That is a car. It's a car. The seller wants money. The platform also wants money. So what happens is the buyer bids on the car from the seller. The seller sells it. The platform takes a small cut. Pretty simple, right? Buyer leaves happy. Seller leaves happy. Obviously, the platform leaves happy. Everybody's happy, right? But what happens if the seller is also the buyer? So shill bidding is what happens, and everybody knows that term. That's when the seller has a couple of friends that jump on, and they act like buyers, and they drive that price up, right? And the platform makes more money, and the seller makes more money, but the buyer spends more money. So the only loser here is the buyer. Everybody else wins. So what's the incentive to stop this from happening? Not much, right? Not to mention that it's really hard for the platform to prove that the seller is also the buyer, if they're smart, right? Because if they're smart, they have their buddies in another place, do the bids. They stop early enough that there's still actual bidding that happens. The seller makes a little bit more money. The platform makes a little bit more money, and there's no real incentive to stop this. So it's really hard to prove, and it's really, really hard to get caught, unless you're an idiot. And today, we have a couple of those. All right, so this isn't just talk. I got some real-world examples for you. Let's start with this one. So we have a 1995 Nissan 240SX. It's a pretty famous case, was on the drive, a number of other things. It had 590 miles on it, right? A museum piece, right? It's one of those cars that, only gets more expensive while people like me and you watch from the sidelines and make bad decisions to buy out the rusted version of that same car. So a dealer in Virginia puts this thing up. It's Duncan Imports and Classics. Remember that name. They listed on Bring a Trailer. And then the bidding goes nuclear on this thing. And the bat community, who are generally smarter than the bidders because of the just vast amount of people there, started noticing things. And within 8 minutes, within 8 minutes, they find pictures of this thing with rust in the underbody, right? In the pictures on a 590-mile car. Overspray, inconsistent with the way factory work looks. A non-stock crank pulley. Missing fender liners. And the best one, the VIN plate is held in with push pins instead of rivets. Push pins. So now the comment section breaks out into pure chaos. Everybody's making comments, everybody's noticing every little thing, and someone starts digging through the high bidders comment history. Account name, Pilatus. Now, it's not a fresh account. It's been around for a while. He's never really sold anything, but he buys a lot of stuff and he bids on a lot of stuff. And, well, he happens to bid on, Duncan import and auto stuff pretty frequently. Puts in 1 or 2 bids. Likes to drive the price up right at the last minute. Strange, right? And then he bids on this car. And so bat guys keep searching, and they find a completely different auction for a Honda Del Sol, actually, where Pilatus had left a comment that says, "I want to buy this back. Gary Duncan." Gary Duncan. Recognize the name? Duncan Imports and Classics? Gary Duncan. So, things go off the rails. Bat cancels the auction. Well, the drive calls him on the phone pretty shortly after, and the guy admits it. His defense for this, I'm not making this up, was that he shill bid his own car on Bat because he was unhappy with how they were handling the comments. I committed the crime to protest the process. The community caught it in 8 minutes. Journalists confirmed it on record, and Bat pulled the listing. You want to know what the consequences for this were? Hang on. The consequence was nothing. Both counts stayed active. Sure, there hasn't been a lot of activity on either one of them since 2022, but they're both still there. All right. Quick pause here. Go ahead and hit subscribe. These are the videos right here that the algorithm does not love to push. And I see the stats. A large percentage of you guys that are watching aren't subscribed, but you keep coming back. Well, that's a pretty easy problem to solve, unlike shill bidding on the internet. And in order to do it, all you got to do is hit that button. And if you're already subbed and want to support the channel some more, use that QR code right there and go get you some merch. All right, back to the video. January 29th, 2026, the Department of Justice, Antitrust Division. You know, the fun part of the DOJ, the guys you like to invite to parties. Well, they came to a settlement with a company called eBlock Corporation, an online auction platform. The charges? Bid rigging, wire fraud, conspiracy to suppress competition. All federal crimes, with a $3.28 million criminal fine. That was the settlement. $1 million of it was for a whistleblower payout, first one ever under the DOJ's new antitrust program. Somebody on the inside decided they'd rather be rich than let this company scam any more people. Good for you, brother. Best part of this all, or most disappointing, depending on how you want to look at it, is this company didn't even start the scam. They inherited it from the company they bought out. They found out about it and they just let it keep rolling, in the names of profits and higher stock prices. And buried in the filing, the total scheme was worth $16 million. $16 million worth of fake bids, relisted vehicle, and pooled profits. $16 million before somebody talked. So you're going to make a fair point. eBlock is a wholesale site, dealer to dealer. We're never going to see it. It's not bad. It's not cars and bids. But here's the point. A federal court just proved that this method works, which means the question was never whether any of this happens on public platforms. It's whether anybody's paying attention to it. This next story, though, is about someone who wasn't paying attention. So shill bidding is bad. We can all agree on that. But the eBlock guys were professionals. It's a corporation. Of course they're screwing us. Gary Duncan, at least he had a plan, I guess. That's kind of a plan. And then there's this guy. This story comes from VinWiki on YouTube. Links down in the description. So a guy lists his Mercedes AMG G63. Reserve, $90,000. Bidding stalls at $80,000. Well, he gets nervous, and if you recall our triangle from earlier, he calls a few of his friends, jumps on a couple of his burner accounts, and fake bids push it up to $86,000. Well, if you know anything about BAT, you know there's a buyer's fee of 5%, and 5% of $86,000 is $4,300. And if the highest bid on the auction doesn't meet the reserve, but goes over the reserve when combined with that 5% buyer's fee, BAT will sell the car. They'll take a lower commission, but they get sales, which helps with their sell-through rates, and they don't actually lose any money. They just don't make that much. They'll make it up on another sale. So the owner bids with a couple of his friends to drive that price up, thinking, we'll just make it just short, and then someone will bring it to the 90. So they're bidding against themselves, peak idiot energy. I mean, this is real. But nobody else bids, and the clock runs out. Guess who won? The seller. So the dealer that was working on the seller's behalf calls down to BAT, tells him what happens, lets him know, says, go ahead and charge this guy the buyer's fee. So BAT charges him the buyer's fee, 5% of $86,000. This man shilled his own truck, won it back, and wrote a check for $4,300 just to keep his own car. Karmic justice, sometimes slow, but always real. Okay, so a couple things to keep in mind when on an auction site. Always check the bidders that you're bidding with. If they have zero bids, zero sales, or maybe haven't won auctions and just kind of pop up in this guy's auctions all the time, and they have a username that looks like a cat walked across a keyboard, it's probably not a person. Don't follow them into a price war. Let them win. Walk away. There's always another car. And if you lose an auction and you get a direct message saying the winner backed out, you can have it for the last bid, it's probably a scam. Places like Bring a Trailer are going to contact that person, and then they're going to contact you through the platform, not through direct messages. Private message version, there is no car. There is, however, a guy waiting for your deposit. If the deal is real, it's in your account dashboard. If it's in your DMs, it's just a fishing rod and you're the fish. The car I lost back at the beginning of the video, I still don't really know what happened to it. Could have been pulled for a private deal. It's hard to track that stuff on eBay. Could have ascended to another astral plane. Like I said, I don't know. Who knows, right? But what we do know is the questions that we need to ask now. That's all this is. Not paranoia, just homework. The people playing these games online are counting on you not knowing these rules and games exist. Now you know. Want to watch some more car content from me? Check out the video that's about to pop up right here. And thanks for coming. Hope you enjoyed your time here, and I'll see you next time on Off Camera.